You see this chart? It says liquidity. And that's because what we've just witnessed is a liquidity grab, where market makers have used the cover of media and news events to drive the price down and absorb liquidity in specific zones. Once they've done this, they're now free to move back in the opposite direction. And with now fear and worry spreading across the crypto markets, we are seeing billions of dollars worth of short positions building up high above current prices, meaning that market makers can start to hunt for liquidity in the opposite direction. So if you're feeling worried, scared, and don't know which way to turn, and you want to make sense of it all, well, you're in the right place. Do me a favor, hit the like button, and let's go find out what's been going on. Now guys, before we dive into the charts, I want to say something. If you've been subscribed to the House of Crypto over the past few months, or longer, you've probably started to understand something that we've been talking about. Every time you see a fearful, worrying news event, you need to think about something. There's only one group of people who benefit from these scary, worrying news events, and it's the rich people. Why? Because they know why these events are happening. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so I'm not going to talk too much about whether or not I believe this little feud that's been going on between two grown men, but it is a little bit weird. And ultimately, all it's done is shaken the prices of various different stocks and crypto prices a little bit lower and created more fear and worry sentiment across the markets, which, if you're a profitable crypto trader, you want to see. Okay? Because you want to be entering into fearful, worrying markets. You don't want to enter into euphoric markets. Trust me on that. If you've entered into euphoric markets in the past, that's probably why you are down in your portfolios. Who enters into scared, fearful markets? People like BlackRock. Okay, they've been buying over the past few days into Ethereum in big volumes. People like Donald Trump with his World Liberty Finance, various different institutions, etc. Now, on top of that, we've seen some very interesting stuff take place that's caused a nice positive reaction to be shown across different crypto charts. This is from Marty Party. You can go follow over on Twitter, and he's basically shown where the different liquidity pools have been set up across the major cryptocurrencies: Bitcoin, Solana, Sui, Ethereum, XRP, BNB. And you can see that now billions of dollars worth of short positions are stacked up above current prices. You might think that that's bearish, but trust me on this. Market makers want to move where the liquidity is, and this is fuel for the fire, because when the market makers decide to push price higher, they will absorb all of these sell positions, flipping them into buy positions, and that can send the markets pumping very, very aggressively, and is often why after periods of time where we've been going sideways and the price suddenly turns around, that we see some of the most explosive moves like this. The explosive moves come from when the market has been fearful for a long time. You can see here, fearful for a very, very long time. You can see as soon as Bitcoin breaks this, it goes absolutely parabolic. Okay, once you can see again, fearful for a long time, it breaks the downtrend here, and it goes parabolic and starts to push up. Now you can see it's having a nice healthy retest, and we're quite fortunate to see this. Now guys, before we dive in and have a look at what this liquidity stuff is really all about, and whether or not we're going to see prices go higher, whether or not our altcoins are still safe, let's quickly just look at the M2. Because I know people are like, the M2 doesn't work anymore, it's complete BS, you weren't able to predict this like 9% pullback in Bitcoin. Guys, you don't want me to predict 9% pullbacks in Bitcoin, because it's nothing. Okay, this is a very small pullback really in the grand scheme of things, but many people have been forced to be very bearish and scared because they've been caught up in all of this kind of price action over a long time, and the altcoins have been suffering, which is why all the fear has been building up. But if you zoom out and look at this on a weekly chart, Bitcoin went straight up for 7 weeks. It's had a couple of weeks pulling back and potentially then has more ahead of it. Now, what we can see here is that Bitcoin started to pull back around the 19th of May. Those of you who are a little more astute will have noticed that the M2 was going up at that point and then has pulled back. So many of us probably thought that Bitcoin would be pulling back maybe next week rather than now. And that's because basically I forgot some crucial things, right? While the M2 continues to increase basically on the weekly chart, as we've seen over the past few months, years in fact, you can see that there are always like 1 or 2 weeks in between where not much happens. It doesn't always have to mirror perfectly exactly what is going on the M2. You can see M2 is rocketing up here, but we have a 2 or 3 week sort of sideways play around before Bitcoin finally breaks. This was at the previous all-time high. You can see again, previous all-time high from here. Bitcoin sticking around here until the market makers are ready to send this to the next level. Now, in the past, back last summer, we saw Bitcoin building slowly, quietly, while everyone was like, my altcoins are doing nothing. With the exception of Sui and a handful of other altcoins that were pumping during this time, everyone was incredibly fearful and worried all until this point. Then all of a sudden, market pumps like this. And everyone was like, oh, well, it's because Donald Trump's going to be the president. He's a pro-crypto president. This is really bullish. And that was the news story that covered the tracks of the market makers just driving up the prices to capture all of those short positions that were stacked up here and also move with the liquidity. Liquidity then falls, so does Bitcoin. Liquidity then goes up, so does Bitcoin. But obviously, from week to week, we can see bearish stuff going on. And I appreciate that many altcoins have been suffering during this time. Guess what? Many altcoins suffered during this time, but many altcoins did incredibly well here. Let me just show you a couple of examples. This is My Lovely Planet, a coin that I personally hold. You can see from like September time, when Bitcoin was going up, it was kind of going down and not really doing a huge amount. Guess what? Bitcoin broke above those highs around the 4th of November. MLC, or My Lovely Coin, went up like 110%. And then the 2 weeks that followed, it went up 12x. And then the week after that, it finished up about 14x. This is why you're sitting in the markets right now, okay? To be able to capture these moves. You can see from the highs, My Lovely Coin, just as an example, pulled back 71%. This is just one coin. So many coins just did nothing and sat doing nothing until around here, and then suddenly just ripped towards the upside. So if you're complaining and you're worried about altcoins right now, I get it, okay? I hold altcoins too. It's annoying that my portfolio doesn't look as big as I want it to look, okay? But that doesn't really matter, because I'm not holding for next week. I'm looking to take exits towards the top of the bull market. And as you can see, it's 1,056 days from the bottom of the last bear market. You can see every single time, uptrend for Bitcoin is 1,056 days. Now, by the way, this is a monthly chart, so once Bitcoin hits the top, there's nothing to say that Bitcoin can't stick there for a few weeks or so to allow the altcoins to kind of rally up behind it. But ultimately, you don't tend to see the wider altcoin market really starting to blow up until Bitcoin's been in a good, healthy uptrend for at least 7, 8, 9 weeks, maybe more, okay? And then you start to see these kind of things happening. Now, some of the stronger, earlier movers will show some signs of life from here. This is Clearpool, just as an example. 5th of August, you can see it slowly started to build up until the 2nd of December, where it suddenly just like pumps like crazy. 2nd of December, just for those of you who are aware, looking at a Bitcoin chart, comes here, okay? So Bitcoin had been going through all of this before many altcoins really started to kind of punch on and get going. So I understand. Fear and sentiment right now is horrible, okay? I get it. People are fearful. People are worried. They're worried whether or not they can rely on the certain models, whether or not they've been paying attention to the right person or not. I'm not here to debate that with you. Go and pay attention to as many different charts and whatever as you want. All I'm asking right now is that you go and backtest various different models and build for your own mind and your own like self-preservation a model to be able to trust and understand. Okay, if you're blindly just following charts or an influencer or whoever, I told you that if ever you see pullbacks of like 10, 20%, you can absolutely panic if you haven't done your own research because you won't have conviction in those coins. And if you don't have conviction, you end up being panicked and worried. This was Solana in the last bull market. It fell by about 83%. After falling about 80%, it went down to $1 and then it finished the bull market at $259. Which means it went up 259x, which by the way means if you put in $10, you would have made $2,590. If you put in $100, you would have made $25,900. If you put in $1,000, you would have made $259,000. Okay? So, understand that you are paying the price right now for being in early. Being in early is not a nice place to be in. But ultimately, it means that you can end the bull market in happy times. People who get into the bull market when the markets are looking like this leave crypto in sad times. You want to enter into hardship and exit into happy. Not enter into happy and exit into hard. Because this is what 95% of people do in crypto, okay? Happens time and time again. You probably not experienced the chop and the emotional damage that being holding altcoins through various different like market cycles over a period of time really gives you, okay? And that's why it's a little bit confusing right now. But ultimately, while the timelines seem a little bit skewed, it's not really that much different. We're following a very similar timeline to what we saw in 2017 because Donald Trump came in at the start of the year and introduced tariffs, and this ultimately pushed the dollar up, which meant that the M2 came down and is ultimately resulting in not very healthy looking markets. So in the very short term, are we fine? Okay, looking at Bitcoin, simply it's broken the previous highs. It's come back to retest this zone. And let me show you the liquidity grab that went on here so that you can see for yourself. By the time this video goes live, I won't be surprised if this green candle comes up a bit. Okay, maybe it comes even higher. Who knows? But hopefully the editor will be pumping this out nice and fast so that you can get this in time. Now, what you can see down below is this. Interestingly, the previous low for Bitcoin sat here at $100,757. Now, what you might notice is that the dip of this candle comes just below that. Why do you think that might be? Well, let me tell you. Many people who were fancying themselves as trading legends probably decided to jump into a long trade, maybe here, and their stop loss sat just under this previous low, because they're like, that's a good place, you know, that's where support is, right? Never does price break down through support, because support will hold the price. But actually, every market maker and every market maker's dog knows down below here is where everybody is placing their stop losses. So what do? They move the price just down into where the stop losses are, which means that they can then put in a bunch of buy orders down here and move the price back in the other direction. Now, I know you don't like this, okay? I know it makes people sad, but this is ultimately what we've seen. And the fact that it just did that little tip gives me some pretty good confidence that actually I believe we've probably seen the bottom. Now, obviously, let me just say something. This is the M2 money shift we have been looking at. And according to this, there's a potential for a little bit of chop around until sometime in the 16th of June. And as I said, on a weekly chart, we're just looking to know that the prices of crypto are going to be much, much higher by August, okay? Because it's following this approximately. Pretty damn closely, right? You can see, but there's obviously room for little bumps and pumps along the way. That's fine. This is all we're seeing right now, something like this. Everyone's very panicky, very worried. Things are fine. Now, if we look across the altcoins, I know people are drawing attention to this. Very, very scared. So first of all, let's have a look at the total 3 market cap, which is basically the total crypto market cap minus Bitcoin and Ethereum. What you can see is basically it's come down to retest the top of our cup. Okay, it's gone a little bit deeper than the support line or the resistance or whatever you want to call it. Okay, using support zones and resistance zones, we can see that it's just basically running into this area of support resistance, right? It looks like it's bouncing quite healthily. As we look to the others chart, which is the crypto market cap minus the top 10, we can see something fairly similar is playing out. Now, if I go to a daily chart, this is going to be nice and clear for you. You can see this. This is a shoulder, this is a head, and this is another shoulder, right? Pretty healthy head and shoulder pattern. It's come back to kind of retest. It's come down a little bit lower, but I do anticipate that this is pretty much fine, okay? Now, I've seen other people talking about others' dominance. I've seen Jason Pizzino talking about this today, making some very valid, interesting points about how altcoins are massively underperforming and they are the lowest they have been since 2021. What does that tell you? It tells you that it's probably a good opportunity, obviously not financial advice, of course, to look towards altcoins as a better opportunity. Because you go and buy when things are looking weak and do the opposite when things are looking strong. Now, as you can see on this others dominance chart, we seem to be holding roughly this support level, which has been pretty relevant since March 2017. And you can see that every time it hits this line, it's bounced like crazy. Okay, what was this? This was January the 4th, 2021. That was basically the first kind of leg of an altcoin season we saw there. And then you can see that there was a lull, which came after that first like big pump for Bitcoin and the alts. And then following that, another kind of altcoin season that ran in here. Okay, things are pretty fine. If I'm just confirming what you already know, and you've been pretty calm through this, in fact, buying dips, you're doing things right, in my opinion. Obviously, just my opinion. Go do your own research. If you're inclined to scream at me and say that this isn't working and, you know, this is down and that doesn't work and whatever else, then it means that you don't have enough conviction in what's going on. If you don't believe in this particular model, that's absolutely fine. Go and find another model that you can believe in and follow that. And if you don't believe that this is a cyclical thing, it follows this path every different time because of various different financial conditions, various different economical reasons, which are pretty much playing out already, then you are simply just gambling. If you don't know why markets move in a certain direction, you are just gambling. Being zoomed in too close and trying to pay too much attention to what happens on a daily chart or a 4-hour chart or a 5-minute chart is very scary. Look at this on a weekly chart. Doesn't look scary at all. If I was paying attention last night and looking at the 1 hour, there's a chance that I might have panicked and rushed to go and sell my altcoins, only to then see this come back in the other direction. If you got into a long or you got in down at the markets here, congratulations. If we jump across to cryptobubbles.net and we look at the daily chart right now, things are looking a little bit scary, like we've had some red across the markets. If we look at the hourly chart, you can see we're starting to see some good rebounds coming in already. Some altcoins haven't even really seen any downside at all, okay? Aether, incredibly strong, right? Came all the way down, a whopping 5% in an hour, and then an hour later, it returns back up 5.4%. Absolutely fine. Barely seen any damage at all in the short term, okay? It started down here in April when we had massive fear and worry events, market built up. If you buy the fear, you will always be rewarded for doing the opposite of what normal people do, because normal people are emotional creatures. And as you can see, some of the top performing altcoins recently are just breaking up, coming back to confirm the top of their breakout zones. This is Cookie, very interesting AI dashboard for understanding sentiment in markets, definitely worth checking out, and also will be quite heavily featured, I can imagine, by lots of Twitter KOLs, influencers over the next few months, because obviously they benefit from interacting with the platform. So I do think that this could capture a lot of retail attention, which is why it initially went up probably 458% as confidence returned to the market. Now confidence has drained from the market, it comes back 44%, giving a nice entry. If you missed an entry on this before, looks good. Sui had a really healthy pullback towards this zone. Okay, as you can see, it's now seemingly starting to bounce in this zone. Now, can it come lower? Of course, every single time you buy any coin, of course it can come lower. But really, how much lower is Bitcoin going to go? There's really not that much liquidity anymore left down below these zones. I would say worst case scenario, if you're lucky enough, Bitcoin might get to here. But if it does, it's going to take some sort of dramatic bounce like this. Already, we're starting to see a reasonable recovery here. Who knows, okay? But all you need to know is stop trying to make decisions for short-term results. You're trying to make decisions now for long-term results. All you're simply doing is buying low to try and get into the highs. If you're trying to predict the absolute bottom, you won't, okay? You won't. You will always be too late because, as you can see, after big dips, market suddenly recovers incredibly quickly. Look at this. Cookie, after a last little pullback, in 2 days, it goes up 87%, 88%. It happens, right? Whenever the market decides to go crazy, it's going to be linked probably to Ethereum, and I personally want to be positioned correctly for it. I believe I am, because obviously I've been loading up here. I'm fortunate enough to be around in crypto for a very long time, so I was able to buy into the likes of Solana down here at like $8 or $9. Okay, I made a video about this at the end of 2022. Obviously, I then see the bride up here. Ultimately, I've been there. I've bought the tops, okay? I know the pain that you're going through. I understand it. But guys, really, there is a method to all of this craziness. And actually, once you break through the noise that's going on, it's really quite straightforward. Now, guys, if you want to understand exactly what's going on and have someone guide you through, like I've kind of done in this, and be able to join weekly live Zoom calls with me and 2 other full-time experts in crypto, then make sure you join into the Moonhouse link down below. Every single day, we are answering questions. We're helping the community in there to understand where we should be looking. Coins we've personally been investing in. We are distilling the news that's coming out and making sense of what the market makers are doing when that news story drops so that you don't panic and you understand exactly what is going on. If you want to up your game in crypto and start to move towards becoming a proper investor rather than an emotional trader, then make sure you join the Moonhouse, links down below in the description. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video and found it useful. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and let's play the long game. See you soon. Bye-bye.